Argentina did not collapse overnight. Nations do not fall in a single moment, in a single year, or under a single president. Collapse is slower, quieter, more methodical. It begins in whispers: missed payments, rising prices, a small spike in unemployment, a warning dismissed, a sign ignored, a promise made and broken. But eventually, if the warnings are ignored long enough, the whispers turn into a roar. And by the time the roar is loud enough for the whole world to hear, the collapse is already irreversible. That is the story of Argentina. Not a story of one crisis, but a story of many. Not a story of one ideology, but of institutions corroding over decades. Not a story of one villain, but of an entire political class that grew comfortable living at the edge of disaster until the edge finally gave way. To understand how Argentina fell into this dangerous economic moment, a moment that threatens not only its currency, not only its government, but the stability of the nation itself, we must go back to a time when the fall seemed impossible. A time when Argentina stood among the richest countries in the world. A time when Buenos Aires was called the Paris of South America. A time when Argentina exported prosperity, not crisis. But prosperity breeds complacency, and complacency invites decay. And over the course of the 20th century, Argentina became a warning to the world that wealth can disappear faster than anyone imagines when institutions fail to defend it. Still, the modern collapse, the one unfolding right now, was not shaped in the early 1900s. It was shaped much later, beginning in 2018, when Argentina entered a financial storm whose consequences still punish the country today. Mauricio Macri, a president elected on the promise of modernization, reform, and stability, found himself presiding over the beginning of a crisis he could not contain. It started with optimism. Macri lifted capital controls, opened Argentina to foreign markets, and promised that the country would finally rejoin the global financial system. Investors cheered, money poured in, the peso strengthened. But beneath the surface, the numbers were rotten. Inflation remained high. The fiscal deficit ballooned. Borrowing increased at a reckless pace. And when global conditions shifted, when interest rates abroad rose and investors became nervous, Argentina was exposed. The peso crashed, capital fled. And in the panic, Macri made a decision that will haunt Argentina for decades. He turned to the International Monetary Fund. The IMF responded with the largest loan in its entire history, $57 billion. It was sold as salvation. It became a curse. Argentina had borrowed its future to pay for its past. And the future was not willing to wait. By 2019, inflation was surging, poverty was rising, the peso was collapsing, and the political cost was immediate. Macri lost re-election. Argentinians, desperate and exhausted, turned to Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. The return of Peronism, the return of subsidies, the return of intervention. But the crisis they inherited was not a fire they could extinguish. It was a fire that consumed everything it touched. Then came 2020, a global pandemic, a nationwide lockdown, a halt in production, spending, and mobility. And the government responded the only way it could, by printing money at a pace Argentina had never seen before. Salaries, pensions, subsidies, all financed through a central bank already stretched to the edge of collapse. Inflation soared to levels that would destroy most nations. But Argentina had learned to live with chaos. And that was the most dangerous sign of all. By 2021, the country was trapped. Debt payments loomed. The IMF demanded restructuring. China, holding billions in Argentine loans, waited silently. And the peso, once a currency, had become something closer to a metaphor. A reminder of promises no longer believed, value no longer trusted, future no longer secure. By 2022, it was clear that Argentina had run out of room to maneuver. But Argentina has always had one last move. Blame the old enemies, punish the old villains, promise new miracles. Yet this time, the miracles were gone. The political class had failed too often, too dramatically, too consistently. And the people knew it. Into this vacuum stepped a man unlike any Argentina had seen before. A man who did not speak like a politician, did not dress like a politician, did not act like a politician. A man who carried a chainsaw on stage and promised to use it on the state itself. Javier Milei, a libertarian economist turned television firebrand, turned congressman, turned presidential candidate. He did not offer comfort. He offered pain. He did not promise gradual change. He he promised shock. He did not blame the past. He vowed to destroy it. For many Argentinians, after years of lies and disappointment, that message was irresistible. In 2023, Milei won the presidency. And in his first speech, he declared a phrase that would define the new era. No hay plata. There is no money. And he meant it. Argentina's central bank was not just empty, it was in the red. Foreign reserves had collapsed. Imports were suffocating. Energy costs were rising. And the peso was volatile beyond control. Milei's solution was radical. Eliminate subsidies. Slash spending, freeze public hiring, dismantle ministries, devalue the currency, and consider the ultimate gamble: dollarization. This was not shock therapy, this was economic amputation. And the effects were immediate. Overnight, the peso lost more than half its value. Food prices doubled, fuel prices soared. Rent became unbearable. Millions slipped deeper into poverty. But the government insisted that pain was not a failure of policy, it was the consequence of decades of mismanagement. And in a sense, they were right. The crisis of 2024 did not begin in 2024. It began long before, in 2018, in 2001, in 1989, even in 1975. Every crisis built on the last. Every solution created the next collapse. But this time was different. This time, the entire structure was cracking at once. By mid-2024, Argentina was entering a state economists call hyperfragility. A condition where the economy becomes so unstable that even small shocks can cause catastrophic damage. Inflation was not just high, it was unpredictable. Prices changed daily, salaries lagged behind reality. Businesses could not plan. Investors refused to commit. The IMF demanded compliance. The opposition demanded resistance. And the country drifted toward a storm with no safe harbor in sight. The worst blow arrived quietly: an energy crisis. Argentina found itself unable to secure enough fuel for winter. Power shortages approached. Import capacity was crippled by the lack of dollars. And industries that had survived the pandemic now faced shutdown. The government argued that austerity would eventually stabilize prices, that discipline would restore confidence, that markets would reward sacrifice. But markets do not reward suffering. They reward results. And Argentina was still drowning. Meanwhile, Milei's plan for dollarization, the idea that Argentina could abandon its currency entirely, began to falter under the weight of reality. Dollarization requires dollars. Argentina did not have enough, not even close. And without Mexico or the US willing to provide the capital, the plan shifted from imminent to theoretical, even within the administration. Whispers grew louder. Perhaps the peso could not be saved, and yet the country could not afford to replace it. This was the moment foreign powers began to circle. China, Argentina's largest lender after the IMF, saw an opportunity to deepen influence. The United States, watching Milei align himself with Washington, sought leverage of its own. The IMF, as always, demanded structural reforms that would test the patience of any society. And Argentina remained caught in the middle, unable to satisfy one without alienating the others. By late 2024, the political system itself began to fracture. Milei found himself at war with Congress, governors, unions, and the establishment. Protests grew, strikes expanded, and the old power networks, still strong, still deeply entrenched, moved to weaken the government. But Milei refused to retreat. He insisted that retreat meant death, that compromise meant collapse, that the old political order must be destroyed before Argentina could rise. Meanwhile, everyday citizens faced a colder truth. Ideological battles do not lower prices. Political wars do not restore salaries. Rhetoric does not fill the refrigerator. By early 2025, Argentina reached a point no economist wanted to name publicly. A phase where the currency, the political system, and the social fabric were unraveling simultaneously. This is the most dangerous moment a nation can face. It is not a recession. It is not a crisis. It is something deeper, a transformation, a breaking point, a moment when a country must choose whether it will rebuild or collapse completely. Inflation approached 300%. Poverty neared 50%. The peso continued its slide. The IMF negotiations stalled. China tightened its grip. And the government braced for a winter that threatened to overwhelm the energy grid. Each of these challenges alone could destabilize a country. Together, They formed a perfect storm. And yet, even in the midst of this crisis, there remained a question that haunted every discussion, every analysis, every prediction. Is Argentina facing just another crisis? Or something far more final? The warning signs are everywhere. The currency is losing legitimacy. Argentinians no longer save in pesos. They save in dollars, in commodities, in goods. Some even store wealth in foreign bank accounts, not out of luxury but survival. A currency without trust is not a currency, it is paper. The state is losing capacity. Decades of political battles have weakened the government's ability to enforce policies. Subsidies are gone. Budgets are slashed. Public services struggle. And every cut deepens social anger. The political system is losing stability. Milei governs with little support in Congress. The opposition seeks to weaken him, and the people, caught in the middle, grow more desperate. The economy is losing direction. No investor is willing to commit in an environment where inflation destroys returns before profits can even be calculated. No worker can plan for a future where wages lose value before the month ends. No business can survive when uncertainty becomes policy. These are not the signs of a temporary crisis. These are the signs of a country approaching a structural breaking point, and yet, Argentina is not without strengths. It remains one of the world's largest producers of food, lithium, natural gas, and energy potential. Its population is educated, resilient, adaptable. Its geographic position is strategic. Its culture is vibrant. Its identity is strong. Argentina is not a failed state. But it is a failing system. A system that has collapsed so many times that collapse has become normal. A system that destroys prosperity as quickly as it creates it. A system where every government inherits a disaster and leaves behind an even larger one. That is how Argentina arrived at this dangerous moment. Not through one leader, but through many. Not through one ideology, but through a cycle of excess and correction. Excess and correction. Excess and correction, until the corrections became too painful to bear and the excesses too large to ignore. And now, in 2025, the country stands on a knife's edge, where every decision carries enormous risk, where every mistake could be fatal, where the past is too heavy to escape and the future too uncertain to predict. Which leaves only one question, one that hangs over Argentina like a shadow. Will the country finally break the cycle? Or is this the moment when the cycle breaks the country? Please let us know in the comment section below. Finally, if you like this video and you want to see us again, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. At Echoes of Power, the echoes are just beginning.